There's always a running back who outperforms expectations and leads us to fantasy victory. Today, I'll be talking about 5 fantasy running backs that I think will massively outproduce their ADP. Before we get into the video, make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the page if you want to see more fantasy football content this entire offseason. One of the things that I look for when I'm looking for running backs that are potentially league winning, the league winners that they say, what I'm looking for is players who could potentially massively outproduce their ADP. And I think the easiest way to find this is to find starters who have typically produced, right? Your veteran players, your superstars, who are being discounted after having an injury, maybe a less than stellar efficiency metric, as a lot of people like to look towards from last year. And I'm also looking for depth chart pieces, right? Like players that may not seem like they're the alphas and are being punished because they have either a rookie or somebody else in their lineup that is threatening their touches, okay? So for running back specifically, I think there's a lot of gray area. Most of the time, we see a lot of the analysts out there, they'll go for who can win your fantasy league later on. But running back's a very hard position because typically that position gets injured more frequently than any of the others in fantasy football. Last year, we saw an exception from that. We saw a lot of running backs stay healthy. But this year, I want to talk about it. I think there's 5 running backs right now that are going at extreme value. And if you're smart and you're able to capitalize this on your drafts, I think there's a chance that you can have, maybe a higher level production tier-wise as opposed to the others in your league. So I'm going to go over 5 running backs that I think are going way too low right now. Joe Mixon last year was the RB2 from weeks 1 through 14, the RB2 in points per game. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a lot, right? You're like, oh, points per game. He didn't finish RB2, but that was an amazing stretch where he was heavily involved in this Texans offense. The thing about the Texans is they haven't done much outside of add a couple receivers. It's the same quarterback, the running back, they added Nick Chubb, but the situation is still going to be the same. We're going to give the rock to Joe Mixon 20 to 25 times a game, which is exactly the workload that he saw last year. Nick Chubb did get signed, and I'm not too worried about Nick Chubb. Like, Nick Chubb was less than 3.5 yards per carry last year after he came back from his ACL. And the team kind of used Damian Pierce in probably a similar role that Nick Chubb's going to be used this year. Somewhere in that 8 to 10 carry range to take a load off of Joe Mixon so he can make it through a whole year. I get that injuries are a concern, but Joe Mixon is going as the RB18 right now in drafts in PPR leagues, which is way too low for a guy that's typically a top 10 finisher at the running back position. So I know he's being overall drafted right now in the 4th round. And I think if you can get Joe Mixon in the 4th round, you're getting an incredible steal and somebody that could potentially be an RB1 for your team after you've already taken another elite running back. So he played through injury late last year and he was dealing with ribs and back. Like there was a whole lot of stuff with Joe Mixon and he missed time even earlier in the year. And so for me, I'm not overly concerned about Joe Mixon, the player. I think if I had a risk or something I was being, maybe a little bit like nitpicky about it, be his injury. Can he stay on the field for the entire season? With this Houston offense, I expect it to be a lot better than it was. I expect Joe Mixon to be a lot better than he was. Give me all the Joe Mixon shares I can get. And I've done a lot of mock drafts this offseason. I've been taking Joe Mixon anytime I can in the 4th round. Like it feels like a gift. And there's players that we dock for no specific reason. I literally can't find the reason right now why we're penalizing Joe Mixon outside of injury. That's it. If you think he's not going to play 16, I get it. But to drop him a couple tiers down, he's going like 2 rounds probably where he should be going. Like after where he should be going. He should be going at the back end of the 2nd, high end of the 3rd round. I think on ESPN it's like that. But in Sleeper and Yahoo, like you can get a really good discount right now on Joe Mixon. So if you find Joe Mixon in your league, that's a player I'd be all in on getting as my, 3rd, 4th player. That's an easy move. Next up, Travis Etienne. Now, with Travis Etienne, obviously there's some concern. Travis Etienne last season was losing work to Tank Bigsby, and we didn't see the season that we saw 2 years ago out of Travis Etienne, which was an RB3 finish in PPR leagues. Now, the team also did draft multiple backs this year, and so there's a little competition. We saw what happened with Liam Cohen in Tampa Bay, where Rachaad White was a presumed starter, and then we saw, Bucky Irving kind of take over late. So late round gem, that might happen in Jacksonville. But currently, right now, Travis Etienne is going as the RB34, and this guy right now is the starter. There's no saying that Travis Etienne won't finish the season as a starter. So unless we know for sure that Tank Bigsby, that Bashal Tootin, that they're going to take over his workload, why are we penalizing this starter so many rounds because of a bad season last year? And last year, he still finishes the RB35. So we're getting a huge discount on Travis Etienne. And the reports all offseason that he's playing well. Liam Cohen wants him to do well in this offense. It's a contract year because they picked up his fifth-year option. Travis Etienne has all the incentive in the world to do really well this year. Is there a chance that he could be bad? Yeah. But we've seen Travis Etienne in multiple years be able to play well for an extended period of time. And in Liam Cohen's offense, they use their backs out the backfield, and they trust their backs, multiple backs. And so as long as he gets the starting gig, I feel really good about Travis Etienne. Like I said, contract year, a lot of times we see players play through injury. We see players play at a very high level. And it's easy to forget, very easy to forget that he was just the RB3. So I think he's being penalized right now because everybody expects Bashal Tutin to be this year's Bucky Irving. Maybe they're expecting Tank Bigsby to play a bigger role, and that's fine. If Tank Bigsby does play a bigger role or Tutin takes over, that's great. But I think right now, RB2-ish, where Travis Etienne is going, you're at least going to get production for the first half of the year. And then when injuries happen to the running back position, hopefully you found some other options in that time. I think Travis Etienne, if he hits, could be a top 12, 15 guy in Liam Cohen's offense. So the upside versus risk with Travis Etienne, I'm going with Etienne on this, man. I feel really good about where he's going. I think a lot of people were disappointed last year, sort of giving up on him. Travis Etienne, don't forget the name when you're down there in, the 7th, 8th round. Don't forget the name. The back that's going over Travis Etienne, Jaylen Warren. Now, I've been really hard on Jaylen Warren in the past because he's been playing in this split backfield in Pittsburgh behind Najee Harris. And I think there's been a lot of discourse about who should be the starter, who's the main back, how does Arthur Smith like to use his backs. And, I think Jaylen Warren is getting penalized a lot this year because the team drafted Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round. Where's Jaylen Warren's value, particularly in the passing game? So in your PPR leagues, I think Jaylen Warren is going to be a massive steal. All he has to really do is stay healthy. And I think early on, he's going to have the lion's share of that split where it's him and Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson's also going to be a value pick down here. I'm not going to talk about him today, but Caleb Johnson is also going to be a very good value pick. I think his success comes later on in the year, which is fine. And I think that there's cases for both of those players to be useful on fantasy teams. But early on in the season, we could get Jaylen Warren as like a top 15, 20 guy in PPR leagues because of the volume. Pittsburgh loves to run the football. And you get a guy like Aaron Rodgers who likes to check down to his backs at times. We can see this thing look really good for Jaylen Warren, who makes himself available. So I know what it is when it comes to Jaylen Warren. It's like, hey, he could lose the starting role. And, one of the things about him is that he hasn't been very good when he's had the starting role. But if Caleb Johnson fails pass protection is a thing for rookies. He has to play well. And Jaylen Warren has proven, at least in spurts, that he can handle a 15 to 20 touch workload. So I think if he remains a starter the whole year, you get one of the best priced starters in all of fantasy. And I think to have him as your RB3 or RB4, it gives you a little bit of a floor play here if you take some upside later on with the Bashal Tutins of the world or with some of these other backs that people really like later in your draft. So a good injury protector early on, a good floor play in PPR leagues, and even has standalone value if he is not the starter later on. I think Jaylen Warren is a good value right now at RB32. Next up, Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara continues to be disrespected in early ADP. I have no reason why Alvin Kamara continues to be disrespected in fantasy circles. It's baffling to me because he's the RB19 right now in ADP. Fun fact, Alvin Kamara doesn't even typically finish outside the top 16 running backs. He's never finished outside of the top 16 running backs in PPR leagues, which is crazy. Crazy. He's been top 12 in 7 out of the 8 years he's been in the league. So to have him at RB19 is absolutely ludicrous. What are we thinking? Okay, the offense is going to be bad, right? Well, why is the offense going to be bad? Just because it's Tyler Shook at quarterback, they got rid of Derek Carr? Derek Carr has been asked for years. Oh, we got a new coach. Hey, that coach is Kellen Moore, one of the offensive gurus in the entire league. So why are we so concerned about Alvin Kamara when Derek Carr was mid? He's going to get the same workload. And we just saw Kellen Moore work with Saquon Barkley, who had one of the best seasons in an Eagle uniform in history. So Alvin Kamara, to me, who's already involved in the passing game, has one of the highest floors in NFL. And when it comes to statistical floors in PPR leagues, has one of the highest floors. Now he's outside the top 15 running backs. He's not worth being your RB1. No, Alvin Kamara is worth being your RB1, and he's probably going to be a top 5 to 10 running back on the season you're getting at a supreme discount. There was only one game all season long last year where Alvin Kamara didn't score 12 fantasy points in PPR leagues. And to talk about consistency or his efficiency's gone down or all the stuff that people want to say about Alvin Kamara, the numbers still remain the same. On a points per game basis, Alvin Kamara was a top 5 running back last year. And I would say the only thing to be concerned about is that if the Saints get out of contention, maybe they rest him down the stretch. He played all the way, up through the last few weeks he had to sit out, the last 2 seasons, dealing with a lot of injuries. I get it. Alvin Kamara, I mean, you take him as the RB19, you're getting potentially an RB1 in like the 4th, 5th round. I've been reaching a lot on Alvin Kamara. Don't judge me, but I've been reaching a lot to go get Alvin Kamara in drafts, and I think it's a winning strategy. As long as you can get your elite players early on in the 3rd round or 4th round, we're talking about Alvin Kamara. It's too easy. Sometimes this fantasy football game is too easy. It's not like the passing game work is going to be gone. It's too easy sometimes. Go get Alvin Kamara. And then a later round pick that I really like. Taj Spears. Tony Pollard is still the guy. But what we do get out of Taj Spears is some upside. And when you talk about later round picks, you want guys who can potentially take over the starting role that you have on your bench early on and become an option for you a little bit later. He's in a dual backfield, which is fine. But Brian Callahan has said multiple times that they want to get Taj Spears more carries, more touches. And that was clearly evident down the stretch last year. During weeks 15 through 17, Taj Spears had games of 27, 21, and 13 fantasy points. He was the RB5 during that period. Like a championship league winner. You want to talk about league-winning players? Taj Spears was one of those last year. So I know Pollard will come into the season healthy, but they've already been talking about lessening his workload, managing it a little bit better, which to me screams Taj Spears is going to get more involved. So in Tony Pollard's, he's not this huge back. If he gets banged up, Spears is going to come in and take over a lot of that workload. There's also potential for a youth movement later on down the year if this Titans team isn't very good. They're sitting at 4 or 5 wins come week 14 and they're out of playoff contention. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to see, hey, Taj Spears, can he be our guy for the next few seasons? I love the setup that Taj Spears is in right now. He's a strong receiving back, had a ton of targets last year in a complementary role, and he was dealing with a lot of injuries himself last year. So yes, Taj Spears does have to stay healthy, but if he does and he can take on a bigger workload, we already know he has the receiving chops. They'll use him in the red zone. Taj Spears, again, could be a league-winning asset for us down the stretch. I really like taking Taj Spears as my RB4, and he goes in that range. You can scoop up a lot of Taj Spears, but there's potential for him to take over this workload even sooner than that. So don't let Taj Spears, just because you see the name, you're thinking he's a backup. He's one of the more quality backup options that there is in fantasy right now. And I think there's a very clear path to him being a very startable asset. And we've already seen the proof is in the pudding with him. When he gets a starting opportunity, he produces. Don't let Taj Spears fall in your draft. So that does it. Those are the 5 running backs that I think you can get way cheaper than they should be going right now at a huge discount in fantasy football. You guys make sure to show the page some love, drop a like, subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you on the next video. Peace out.